This is going to be a little awkward because somehow the cord wasn't long enough for my own laptop. So I'm going to have to keep signaling the, I don't have a tick. I'm going to just keep signaling the changing of the slides. Yeah. The difference between being a spiritual person and being a materialistic person is our awareness of reality, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world, and of course, how we interact with it. And if we perceive the world according to spiritual truth, then we're not really in the material world. I mean, you could say geographically we're here, but we're not really here. I mean, just like even in an ordinary sense, any of you who are sitting here, if you're about to take a vacation to Bali tomorrow, your mind might be there. And you might not really be here. Or if you have some really heavy meeting with your boss on Monday where you think you're going to get fired. So again, you might physically be here, but you might not actually be here. So that basic principle that we are what our awareness is. Our experience of life is our awareness, and that is a choice. It is something that we can practice, and it is something that we can cultivate. So I would assume that most of you, or maybe all of you, have some kind of regular spiritual practice of prayer or meditation or mantra chanting or puja or something like that. But we don't want to have it that our lives are basically materialistic, and we have a little sliver of our life, a little time every day or time every week that we're devoted to the spiritual. We want to change our awareness all the time. So we're going to start out with looking at, you've got to be a lot faster than that. Or this will not work. Okay, so this is where, when Krishna was present on this earth thousands of years ago, he was standing right in front of one of his great devotees, the saintly Kunti, and she calls him the soul of the universe and the personality of the form of the universe. In one of our great wisdom literatures, the Bhagavad Purana, or the Srimad Bhagavatam, as it's called variously, it describes that this universe is one of the forms of Krishna. The universe is actually the body of God. It's only in recent history that scientists decided to see the universe as a cold, impersonal machine and have a basic mechanistic view of life. There's even a mechanistic view of our body, just seeing our body as a machine. But actually, everything is full of life, and the universe is actually a living being, is actually God. And each of us is a cell in that universal body. So we're going to go a little quickly. We don't have that much time tonight. I do have my book here. I don't know how many copies we have left. How many copies do we have? Not many. I just brought whatever I could bring with me on the plane because the shipping was really high to South Africa. So if any of you are interested in this and you want to go more deeply, we do have a copy of our book here. If we run out, it's also available online. But we're going to look at some of the verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam that describe how the universe is the body of God. Now, what I'd like you to do as we're going through this is either make a mental or a physical note of 1, 2, or 3 of these that you particularly would like to meditate on in the next week. And when I end, I'm going to ask for volunteers to list what is the thing that they're really going to give attention to. So the first thing is that the mouth of the Lord is fire. Fire is his mouth. And we can think about speech and voice in general as having a fiery quality. That speech illuminates, warms, enlightens, and destroys ignorance. Of course, speech can also be harsh and cruel and destructive in a general sense. But the positive aspects of fire actually represent the voice of God. You didn't change the last. Okay. Okay, so his skin is also the Vedic hymn. So we were just chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. When we are chanting any kind of Vedic mantra, we're actually touching the skin of the Lord. And the Vedic hymns are also his cerebral passage. We could think of the Vedic wisdom literature as providing the direction for any kind of spiritual community. It provides the flow of awareness for that community as coming from Krishna's brain through his spinal cord. And the Vedic mantras are also his speaking. Whether we're saying them ourselves, whether we're chanting various mantras, whether we're hearing someone else say it, that's actually the voice of Krishna speaking through them. And this is really interesting how our tongue receives food, but Krishna's tongue creates food. Actually, everything we eat is manifested from his tongue. And you notice here it says that this food is meant to be shared. There's no concept in the Vedic wisdom literature of selfishness, of just, I have something wonderful, I have some money, I have some talent, I have some food, and I'm just going to use it for myself. But always, whatever we have, we should share with others. Now, not only food, but the taste of everything, rasa, is coming from the Lord's tongue. Now, rasa is a very interesting word. It can mean any kind of relationship or any kind of flavor or any kind of pleasure. Ayurvedically, rasa refers to fully digested food and food that is very easy to digest, like organic, tree-ripened, locally grown fruit, is called a rasayana because the body very easily and quickly turns that food into rasa. So rasa implies that there's some kind of liquidity. And if we think of any kind of pleasure, if we think of a physiological pleasure, all of it involves some liquidity. The eyes, to see beautiful things, we have to have moisture in our eyes, right? If your eyes dry out, you can't even see things properly, what to speak of enjoy them. We have to have wax in our ears and mucus in our nose. We have to have saliva on our tongue. We have to have oil on our skin. But such is even true if we're talking about the pleasure of relationships. There has to be a kind of flow between us and another living being in order to have a relationship. And all of this comes from the tongue of the universal form. Actually, Krishna wants us to enjoy him, but he wants us to enjoy him in a loving service mood. A materialistic person sees the things of this world that are pleasurable and wants to take them away from a concept of the universal being and exploit them. Whereas a spiritually minded person sees that everything is divine and wants to enjoy that in service to the divine. So on his lips is greed. Our lips tend to be greedy. They tend to be greedy to talk too much, to eat too much. So any idea what Krishna's lips are greedy for?
Love.
Love. Yes. So the Ashwini Kumaras, these are celestial physicians, and Krishna's smelling, the smelling of the universal form, actually creates these universal physicians and all of the medicines of human society, everything that we use to get well. And his breath is also the wind changing, the weather, and having changes through our lives is actually the breath of Krishna. And his two nostrils also cause the breath that allows us to breathe. Just like within our body, there's so many living cells, and each of those cells are breathing, yes? Each of the cells in our pancreas and our ribs, and they're all breathing. And they're breathing because I'm breathing. My taking in breath is allowing each of those cells to breathe. Now, my guess is that the bone cells and the pancreas cells in my body aren't aware of my existence. They probably don't know that I'm part of the body of Urmila. And so a materialistic person also, they're just breathing without realizing that they're part of the universal body and that actually our ability to breathe comes from his breathing. And everything we smell is also coming from his smell. So just like our breathing is coming from his breathing, our smelling is coming from his smell. And all the fragrances of the world are actually his fragrance. So my spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, said even if someone is ignorant of scripture, even if they don't have a guru, you can always find God in the fragrance of the flower. And then we have two words in English, one for breath and one for air. And we distinguish that when air is inside of a living body coming and going, that is breath. It is a living breath. But when the air is outside of me, then it's just inert gases. Actually, that's not a fact. The air outside of us is the breathing of the Lord. It's the breathing of Krishna. And when we are breathing in, we are actually breathing in his prana. And then his eyes create all form. Do you have an open book?
Yes.
So in this book, we go into much greater depth with all of these and many others more than I'll be. So this is we have some nice illustrations. We had a wonderful artist do these illustrations with calligraphy, that his eyes are generating all forms and they glitter and shine. So my eyes are perceiving form. I'm taking in form through my eyes, whereas Krishna's eyes are creating all of the forms that we see. And his eyeballs are the sun and the heavenly planets. When we have a relationship with someone, we make eye contact. Yes? If I want to make eye contact with Krishna, when I see the sun, when I see the moon, when I see Mars and Venus and Jupiter, I'm actually looking deep into his eyes. And his eye pits are outer space. So, my eye sockets are just bones and I suppose kind of gross and morbid. But his are full of wonder and beauty. And then his eyeball is the sun, which is the power of seeing. And just like I can smell because he smells, and I can breathe because he's breathing, I can see because he's seeing. So because Krishna is seeing as the sun, therefore I can see. Without light, I can't see. If you've ever been in a deep cave or a mine, you can't see anything at all. Even we could say, well, we have artificial lights, but that's coming indirectly from the sun through solar power, hydroelectric power, even coal and fossil fuels and things like that. Actually, it's only by the power of the sun that we can see. And then his eyelids are day and night. So when his eyes are open, it's day, and when they're closed, it's night. We wake up in the morning, Krishna's opening his eyes. When we go to bed at night, he's closing them. And this is something I really like to meditate on, that the sunrise and the sunset are the movements of his clothes through the sky. And so Krishna's clothes are described as being kind of yellowish and orangey saffron, and then his form is dark blue. When we see the sun rising and setting, this is actually Krishna dancing through the sky, and his garments moving and seeing his form underneath. And we know that birds often, when they make noise, we see their neck vibrate. Yes, all the sounds are also on his neck. And he hears everything, but he especially hears mantras and his holy name. Just like even in a crowd with so many noises, we'll especially hear the sound of our own name. And all sounds are coming from his ears. This is a very interesting meditation. So again, my spiritual teacher said, if you don't want to chant mantras, you can find God in all the sounds of the world. That actually all sound is originally spiritual, and we think it's material only because of a polluted consciousness. This is a very interesting one to meditate on because some sounds are really annoying. And so you may think, well, how is that spiritual? How is that coming from Krishna's ears? And so I find this kind of an intellectually challenging meditation. But when you actually do it, when you go deep into it, it's just so much fun. How's that sound coming from Krishna's ears? And his steps are the fire of sacrifice. It's called in the Bhagavatam Karma Havibhahi, which means that if we take anything in our lives, our care of our body and mind, our care of the other people we love, the animals we love, our work, our care of our building, and we dedicate that to Krishna, then that is Krishna moving through our life with this step of Havyam Karma. And in his touch are lusty desires, which we can think about whenever we decide who we want to touch and who we don't. And then the hairs of his body are all the vegetation. I really like meditating on this because each plant has its own beauty and its own symmetry. And if each of those are one of the hairs of Krishna's body, how incredibly enchanting he must be. One could be wrapped in meditation forever on one hair of his eyebrow. And if we look at any plant, we can think like that. Oh, that's one of the hairs of Krishna's eyelashes or eyebrows. And in fact, all of the trees are his hairs. You know, sometimes there's a little bug walking on your arm, and you feel it because it's touching your hairs. So whenever we're out walking among the trees, right? Generally any place we walk, there's some trees, right? Even in a big city. I like to think how I'm just walking on the Lord's form, and I feel very close to him, very intimate thing, and I'm walking among his hairs. And then the clouds are the hairs on his head. Right? So what color is Krishna's hair? It's very dark. Krishna's very dark hair. You can say, well, this, I can understand this, you know, if there's dark clouds, like rain clouds, but what am I going to do when there's white clouds? How is this Krishna's hair? So sometimes Krishna's hair also looks white. Does anyone know when Krishna's hair looks white? So you know, Krishna likes to take care of cows, and he takes them out to pasture, and when he goes back home, the cows kick up all this dust, and the dust gets in his hair, and it makes it look white clouds. You can see how Krishna is taking, actually he has not only cows, he also has goats and buffalo, and they kick up all this dust, and it gets in his hair, and those are the clouds. So we already read that his breathing creates all of the medicines, and here we find that his hairs are the medicines. So his hairs are the medicines, and his breathing on his hairs creates the potency of the medicine. So whenever we take, you know, anything, you know, we're feeling some disturbance, and we take some herbal tea, or we take some herbal medicine, or even modern pharmaceuticals, which most of which are derived from plants, or they're the essence of the plants, or they're synthesized chemicals from plants. We can understand that potency comes because they're Krishna's hair activated by his breath. And now his nails produce all electricity. When you turn on your phone, when you switch on a light, it's Krishna's nails. And also on his nails are the working animals. So of course, you don't see this so much anymore in South Africa. Of course, in Northern Africa, you'll see the camels. I was recently in South America where they still use a lot of horses for work, for pulling parts. If you go to Thailand, they're using elephants for work. So like our nails are like tools, and so on them are the working animals. Also on his nails are all the stones. So I think about this whenever I see anybody with painted nails. Or, you know, nowadays people also like to glue stones on their nails, you see? Right? Actually, all the stones in the world, the rubies, the diamonds, the emeralds, the lapis, the opals, all of those are actually the nails. The wild animals are his belt. So I was recently in an airport, and I was waiting for the plane. They made an announcement. Someone has left their belt at security, so if you can't keep your pants up, please come. I think we often underestimate how much we're dependent on the wild animals to maintain the ecosystem. If you'd really like to look at something interesting on YouTube, if you look up wolves in Yellowstone, you see all the wolves in Yellowstone were killed. That's a big national park in the United States. And they reintroduced one pack of wolves. It changed the whole ecosystem. Turned grasslands into forests, changed the path of the rivers, changed what animals live there, because the animals are the belt of the Lord. And his feet give us protection from all fear. And this is something we can think about. You know how when we're walking on uneven ground, or difficult stairs, or muddy ground, all our attention goes to our feet, right? To give us stability and fearlessness. And then we can remember that it's the feet of Krishna that actually protect us from fear. And the rain is his semen, the concentrated form of energy. So generally a male can produce offspring of the same species, but through the rain, Krishna, who's aham bija pradapita, he is the father of everyone, produces all species directly and indirectly. In fact, all water can be said to be his semen, the life-giving essence, water that nourishes us and cleanses us. And we can think about the divine even when we're on the toilet. The universe has its evacuating organ to get rid of envy, just like we get rid of our toxins in our body. And his teeth are Yamaraj, the celestial being that makes sure that there's karmic justice in the world. Whenever we wonder why sometimes things seem unjust in this life, we know that behind that are the jaws of the divine, smashing the criminals and the evildoers. But there's still affection in his teeth. Whenever we feel Krishna's affection, he is smiling at us and showing his teeth. One time, my guru was asked, if God is all good, why is there evil? And he said, evil is on God's back. Or those who are immoral, they're there, but they don't really get the benefit of a relationship with Krishna. And all of the rivers and the rivulets are his veins. The rivers in society, they provide for human habitation, the migration of animal herds. They allow us to transport goods from surplus to need. They are actually the life of the planet, the messengers of the divine heartbeat. And the mountains are his bones, so the mountains give structure and support to earth, just like the bones of the divine body. And his arms, anyone who protects others is acting as the arms of the divine, whether great celestial beings or even ordinary persons, firefighters, social workers, anyone who protects others. And Krishna has a quality of being very shy, which is why people can look at nature and think it's just mechanical. It's like an artist who hasn't signed his painting. And his shyness is in his upper lip, kind of. And it says desire is his chin, so one can ask, how does the divine have any desire? We can think about how children sometimes stick out, but his desire is for love, his desire is for our benefit, his desire is for peace, his desire is for harmony. And in his heart is religion. The word for this is actually dharma, which means authentic and righteous behavior. When we are behaving authentically with caring for ourselves and others, then we are in the heart of the universe. And there on his chest you will find truth spoken pleasingly. When we speak truth in a way that elevates and uplifts people, we are on the chest of the Lord, next to authenticity and also next to the supreme goddess of fortune. When we follow dharma and we speak pleasing, uplifting truth, then our life becomes fortunate. And also on his chest are all the stars. Krishna likes to wear glittering necklaces, and sometimes he puts glittering necklaces on his great devotees. And the stars in the sky are actually these necklaces. And the ocean is his waist, so I'm sure all of you regularly go to the ocean. So Krishna is always dancing. And it says that when he moves his waist, it makes 3 folds on either side. And when we see the ocean, this is his dancing, and the waves and the ripples. And the passing ages are his movements. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am time. We measure time by movements, the movements of the sun in relation to the earth and so forth. And as we go through our life, this is actually Krishna stepping through our life as time. And his intelligence is the source of everything. Just like it took intelligence to make these cushions or this mat or what to speak of this microphone. So everything that we experience is coming from his supreme intelligence. And those who are saintly persons and the great celestial beings, they communicate his intelligence. When we hear from saintly persons, we are actually hearing the intelligence of the divine. And the moon is his mind. So of course the moon appears always to be changing, and we might think, oh, now Krishna is favoring me, now he's not. But actually the moon only appears to change, it's actually constant. And the blessings and the love of the divine are actually constant in our lives. Then Rudra or Shiva is his ego. So generally we might think, oh, I'm free from ego, until somebody offends us, or disrespects us, or slights us, and then, I mean, we may not go to full-on rage, but at least we go to some irritation. And that's the biggest indication that we're still struggling with ego. So we can say, well, does divine have an ego? Well, in some way. But we can also become angry not out of ego, but out of love. Like if your child picks up something dangerous, hey, put that down. So that is the ego of the divine. And then the different birds are his artistry. How do we know that Krishna is an artist? We know from the birds. So what artistry do we see in the birds? Their color, their shape, their songs, even the ones that go ka ka, they're kind of like the drums, right? Their flight, singly or as a group, right? I was seeing some video today of this, I don't know what kind of bird it was, really interesting bird. And their courtship dance was like, oh my God. And so we're seeing and we're hearing birds practically every day, and then we see, oh, Krishna is an artist. And humanity is his residence. So no matter what faith or spirituality one has, right, we call places of worship and meditation, or this is a house of God. And the angels show his musical rhythm. So in every society, the celestials and the angels are always shown as musicians. And this is an interesting one. The evil soldiers are his prowess. That's because even those who are evil, even those who are demoniac, they have to be pulling their strength from the divine. There's actually no other source. They're using it improperly, but still that's where they're pulling it from. His thighs are the Vaishyas. Vaishyas are the agriculturalists, the business people, those who provide all the food, all the raw materials for food, for clothing, for housing. And just like our thighs have our femur, our largest bone, these are the people who support society. And under the protection of his feet are the artisans, the craftspeople, the people involved in service industry, all the engineers, everyone that keeps life working and functioning and supportive and beautiful. It's said that when we offer flowers to the divine, we don't offer them to his head, we offer them to his feet. And so these people in society, they are under the shelter of his feet. And in the navel is the sky. Actually, it is described that the whole universe comes out of the navel of the divine being and then is gradually contracting and going back in. The upper planets are on his chest, and on his eyebrows are the regulative principles or good behaviors. So when we're behaving nicely, he's doing this. And when we're not behaving nicely, he's doing this. And anger is on his forehead. You know, sometimes when we get angry, we kind of crinkle our forehead. I think when I get angry, it's like I'm stuck in one of these ridges of Krishna's forehead. So I'm close to him, but I can't really see him. And on his shadow is death. And we could say, well, he's all effulgent. How does he have a shadow? When we turn from him, we're in shadow. And then we perceive death. Actually, the soul has no death.
Najayate mriyate va kadachid nayam mutva bhavitavana bhuyaha ajo nitya sasvato yam prano nahanyate hanyanamashuru. For the soul, there is never birth or death at any time. The soul has not come into being, does not stop coming into being. The soul does not die when the body dies. Our perception of death
is all due to being in a shadow from turning away. And in his smile is illusion. It's so interesting. In order to be in illusion, in order to forget the divine, in order to see the world as mechanical, that ability also comes from the divine and is his smile. You want to forget me? Fine. I will allow you to forget. I will allow you to not see me, who is here, as everything. And throughout his body are all living beings. So I'd like to ask anyone if anyone would like to volunteer, any one of these that they particularly like to meditate on this week. Yes?
Well, the two of them that's I really like, because the ones about the trees or the hairs on his body, and the stacks of mountain are on his
bones. Oh, very nice.
Because it just makes me think, like, when I was younger, obviously this is before Krishna consciousness, I would always stare outside at the trees and the hills and the mountains, and I would always imagine this like big giant, and like.
But it is,
and actually it is.
It actually is.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The universe is a pretty big giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when the wind would like flow through the trees and the bushes and stuff, and it looked like you could see the hair kind of moving. Mm-hmm. So it just made me think of when I was a child. I was right.
You were right.
You intuitively, you grasp that intuitively.
Anybody else?
I
Yes.
like the hearing, the ear.
Oh, all the sounds coming out of
All
Krishna's
the
ears.
sounds. And we do get annoyed with certain sounds, but I've got a friend that says, well, it's a wake up, or it's a...
Oh, nice.
It's something to bring awareness to us.
Excellent. That is so lovely. Somebody else. Thank you. Yes.
I like what I normally do meditate on the one with navel.
Oh.
So I've also heard that. I have this. I won't say belief, but that everything is within Krishna. So when I'm fearful, I try to meditate on that. That everything is within his belly.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so there's no fear. So that's my way to
Yes.
become brave.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. Excellent. Somebody else.
I like the smells of the nose, the smells of all the herbs. Just
Or his breathing.
and the medicine and that, yeah.
Or his ears and his breathing.
Makes
Yeah.
me food and, yeah. It's just
It's the smell of his breath. You know, our breath may not always smell so nice. But the smell of his breath is, rosemary and peppermint and all that. Isn't that wonderful? Yes? Okay, somebody else? Yes.
I like what you said, that Dharma is in his heart.
Yes.
And when you want to be authentic to yourself and to others, you can meditate on that. So that really touched me, because it's something I want to.
Oh, very nice. Somebody else? Yes.
The one that you say that his smile is illusion. I like that. Well, it's sort of, for me, I see it in two ways, because it causes illusion, but also he's also smiling at us when we're in illusion. Like when Arjuna, right in the beginning, when Arjuna, just before Krishna spoke, and he smiled. And Arjuna was,
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Can I steal that? That's so cool. Yes, yes. Krishna smiling in the midst of both the armies. He was smiling. You're an illusion. Yeah. Oh, nice. Nice. Anybody else? Yeah.
Also, the one about the wild animals being the belt.
Mm.
That's a really nice meditation because, I mean, like especially in South Africa, you know, there's obviously a lot of wild animals and stuff, and also in anywhere. So it's also nice to kind of, you know, we should protect animals because
Because they're the Lord's belt.
Yeah, and that example you gave with the Yellowstone and the wolves, I remember I watched a little documentary about that. So like, it's very everything, you know, Krishna created perfectly. So if we like exploit and take away that species or whatever, you know, there's like a ripple effect.
Yes. Yes, and the pants fall down.
And the pants. Yes.
You know, when one of the many practical results of this kind of meditation is that one becomes a very deep spiritual environmentalist. So one is that you become very happy. You become very happy, you become very joyful, you see everything as the play of the divine. You don't see this duality. But another is that, yeah, you become a spiritual environmentalist. Become an environmentalist out of it as a natural outgrowth of love for the divine that you see, as Krishna says, Daivi Eshu Gunamaya, this is divine nature. It's the body of my beloved. So thank you very, very much. Oh, it's way later than we intended. I probably can't stay too long because I have a very busy day tomorrow and a long ride back. So if any of you do want to get a book, I mean, they're also available on Amazon, much higher price than this.
We have a card machine if you want to take our card.
So if you are interested to get a book here and get me sign it before I go, then thank you very, very much.